What is up, wrestling fans? It is that time of the week for the Fanlight Zone Wrestling Team to talk all things pro wrestling and call it right down the middle. That's right, it's time for this week's edition of 607 TWS, the wrestling show, powered by FanlightZone.com. I am your host. My name is Rich. Joining me, returning, I should usually say as always, but returning to the co-pilot's chair for this episode, she is the hunter of the Pokemans because she's got to catch them all. She is the guru of cosplay, but most importantly for this show, she is a pro grappling connoisseur. She is the first lady of Fanlight Zone. It's the one and only Miss Sammy. It is nice to have you back, and how are you this week?
It's good to be back. Did I miss anything in wrestling? Did anybody win any belts? Was there anything that happened? It seemed like it was quiet last week while I was off.
I mean, it was championship change week, but dread not. The young Padawan Jay filled in, and it was a tremendous talk. I'm sure we'll get your takes because obviously those all spurned on to this week. But also returning to the show, he is the host of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast, better known as the ODPH. He is the editor-in-chief and CEO of Fanlight Zone and FanlightZone.com. But most importantly, he is the man known in the wrestling world as Ken Moneybags, the secret financial source behind Excite Wrestling, amongst others. It is the one and only Ken M. How are you this week?
Well, I'm very busy with my other endeavors there, so please make sure you give Excite Wrestling a follow and let Johnny Moose know that we have been watching, we've been following, and who knows, maybe the Mighty Moose will join us one of these weeks. We keep talking about it, but it's not happened yet. But you want to miss out like he is missing out right now. You want to make sure you're following Fanlight Zone on all social media accounts, blowing up all over the place, so you make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us, like the notifications. We want to know the content you want to know about in the home of comics and pop culture because there's a lot going on, especially at the YouTube channel. So definitely make sure you're subscribed up to that. You don't want to be missing out like everybody else now, do you?
Fair enough. But if we bring Moose on the show, we're going to need a bigger room. That's for true. An ego that massive can only be battled by one Ethan Page, which we love Ethan Page. Just throwing it out there. Yeah, there we go. All ego. All right. With that being said, we got a big show this week. I mean, I know you alluded to it, Sammy. I'm gonna get your thoughts and opinions because obviously, and Ken's as well, because obviously things from last week floated over. So we'll talk about that in the main event segment, if you will. Before we go off, we are going to preview this upcoming weekend's Saturday night's main event from the Mecca. And that would be Madison Square Garden, the home of your world champion New York Knicks. That's right. I'm all nicked out again right here because that's what I do. Jalen Brunson will be in the house, by the way. Cannot wrestle, but will be in the house. But with that being said, we're also going to touch on what's going on with AEW with the build to Redemption and also a bunch of other stories, including kicking the show off, talking about the announcement of where this year's Survivor Series will emanate from. Because, they treated that like a gigantic deal, like it was some big mystery. Now, I understand. And Ken, you'll understand this, and Sammy, you will understand, but Ken will definitely understand because Fanlight Zone, and it's not a humble brag or anything like that, we get press releases, right? Yep. Just like other media outlets. What happens when you get a press release? You release the press. So all day long, everybody had already released that Survivor Series War Games. Sorry, yeah, let's do it again. Survivor Series
War Games
would be emanating from Houston, Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then when you get to Raw, and they do this big package like it's a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
But anyways, War Games is coming to you from Houston, Texas, and they're going to be at the baseball stadium, home of the cheating sons of beeps, the Houston Astros. As if it's too early in the show for me to say Padawan Jay's famous line, but you can go listen to the end of the episode. He signed off with the famous line.
Yes, he did.
Ken M, I'm going to start with you. How do you feel about, obviously it's a ways down the road, but how do you feel about Survivor Series coming to you from Houston, Texas?
It is what it is. I mean, I thought that they might be going around Texas this time of year because obviously when you get into the colder months, you don't want to be in the Northeast. And if you want to do War Games in that place that we don't mention because, obviously of that certain baseball team, because Yankees all day, every day here. It is what it is, but it's going to be a fun show nevertheless. Curious how it's going to play out. I think they're already kind of teasing it a little bit, but, we got a lot of ways to go before then.
Once again, not a classy organization like the New York Knicks. I'm going to keep going. Miss Sammy, Houston, Texas, are you packing your bags for Survivor Series?
I am not packing my bags for Houston Texans. However, it is an interesting place to do a show out of. I'm pretty sure that's a dome. There's the opportunity to close the roof there and everything, so weather conditions aren't so much of an issue. It is an interesting ballpark, so it is an interesting place to host it. But no, I'm not going to anywhere near the Astros. No, thank you.
Like we're all proud New York Yankee fans, so that's why all the hate for it. But I will say this: I do dig the concept that they are now doing Survivor Series. It looks like from baseball stadiums, because last year, they did in San Diego, and this year, so it looks like that's kind of. I think it works for the two cages. I think the sight lines and everything work very well. I mean, I'm a fan of that because let's be honest, as a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Tokyo Dome is a baseball stadium.
Yes.
Most people forget that. So I do dig this. And once again, I think jokes about the Astros aside, Houston's a great wrestling town.
Yes.
If you're going to pick a place where people are going to show up and show out, it's a great place to put Survivor Series. Yeah. As you pointed out, Ken, I think that they're being a little, in years past, we've said that they've waited to the last minute to kind of announce Survivor Series. I think this year they're kind of being a little too heavy-handed because, we're probably going to get the bloodline versus the not bloodline.
Yeah, I think we're
for the men's at least.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going with this one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the writing is on the wall, if you will. But you know what? It was a good announcement, but that wasn't the biggest announcement of the week. I just wanted to open with that. That was the appetizer announcement because I'm watching Monday Night Raw, just like everybody else, right? And all of a sudden on my screen, I see something.
What?
I look, and I'm like, I was doing the cadence on purpose. Thank you, Sammy. I see something on the screen. And I'm like, is that the rumor we've been hearing? Could it be? And then I see the number 8/3, numbers with a slash. Could that mean August the 3rd? Could that mean the return of Enzo and Big Cass on August the 3rd, which would be the day after SummerSlam? So it would be the Monday Night Raw after SummerSlam. I'm of two minds here. First of all, as Ken pointed out, it mostly showed Big Cass. So that is what it is. But I'm of two minds with it. I feel like you could have done something better with just doing the surprise. I mean, we've heard the rumor. I get steering into the rumor. But could you imagine if kind of like when they made their main roster call up with the Dudley Boys? Could you imagine if somebody's out there and then all of a sudden the music kicks on? Like the crowd's going to go ballistic for it. Sammy, what's your thoughts on kind of getting confirmation that we're getting at least Big Cass, probably Enzo and Big Cass back on August the 3rd? Where are you upset that they didn't leave that as a surprise?
I think no, I'm okay. They didn't leave it as a surprise, and here was why. Because you pitched how they originally debuted on the main roster with the Dudley Boys. Who could they do that with now? There's no tag teams in WWE that make any sense. So you need the tease because they have to be the big bad, big bad tag team, and they're not necessarily going to be heels, but just like they have to be the big tag team to try and reinvigorate this division.
Well, Sammy, what are you talking about? They could always stick them with the new. Oh, wait a minute. No, they're not there anymore. No, they're not there anymore. Damn. Oh man. I mean, granted,
Are we going to bring the Hardy Boys over from
Hardy
TNA?
Boys? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess you could go Jimmy and Jey Uso. By the way, does everybody know who the tag team champions in WWE are currently?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, who are the tag team champions? Well, we know one.
The Vision.
Yep.
Duh. Well, I mean, let's face it. Logan Paul's connected, the greatest wrestler currently on the roster.
Okay.
Isn't it still Truth and Priest or no?
What's up?
Is it still Truth and Priest?
Yeah, it's still Truth and Priest.
Yeah, Priest. Yeah, it's Priest and Truth.
I love it.
But Priest is about to have a big run in Triple A, so
yeah, which is fine. I'm actually excited to see Priest down Triple A. I think Triple A is a real fun territory. Yes. I'm going to be honest with you. I find myself drawn to that Saturday show and everything they're doing. It's amazing. As much as we talk about Chef Michael's cooking in NXT, Taker's cooking in Triple A.
Yeah, and
really gonna make a push for the Booker of the Year coming into as the year goes on. Because I mean, they've already got the match of the year. Now, granted, All In could have something to say about that. But right now, as of right now, Mask versus Mask is definitely the match of the year. There's that. Let's dive into it though. Let's dive into. We're sticking with WWE here in the beginning, and I just kind of want to. what's going to spurn this, because I do want to get your thoughts on championship change, because obviously we know CM Punk is the new WWE Undisputed Champion after beating Sami Zayn last week on Raw. I know that was over a week ago, not this past Raw, the Raw before, but you both weren't on the show last week.
Right.
Where this ties in, where I want to get your opinions on it, is it ties in because I want to talk a little bit about the Stephanie McMahon interview on her podcast with CM Punk, which if you didn't watch, it's a little over 2 hours. Very good. I did catch it. I had to watch it in a couple different spots because let's be honest, folks, if something drops on a Monday or a Tuesday, it is a rough watch, because I had 15 comic book reviews. Okay. Ken had more, so it's always there. So fanlightzone.com, check those out. Right. So I appreciate it. But anyways, on it was brought up. I'm going to start with there, and then I want to go into more of the interview, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, a lot of criticism came down after CM Punk defeated Sami Zayn, with Sami Zayn only being champion for 9 days. A lot of people got a little upset about it. The internet went nuts, which the internet would have gone nuts either way, is my argument. So it doesn't really matter. But the one thing that kept coming up on the internet was Punk becoming something that, and this is what's kind of Stephanie asked, was Punk becoming something that he preached against, somebody who holds the young guys down. And his response, and I don't think he meant it as an insult, was, yeah, I held down that young up-and-coming 41-year-old Sami Zayn. In this case, it doesn't work about holding down young up-and-comers. I understand if you're upset that he defeated Sami Zayn, you wanted Sami Zayn to be champion longer, even though a lot of you that were complaining about that, let's be honest, were complaining that Sami Zayn was champion. And I'm not defending the booking decision. I'm just saying the same talking heads on the internet who type and get behind their things were pissed off that Sami Zayn was champion, but then as soon as he lost it, oh man, FCM Punk, for holding down the young feller. So I thought it was a fair criticism by Punk, like, hey, I'm not going to pay attention to it because I held down a young talent for it. He's not, and it's just the way of business and the way business moves and the way it works. So A, how do you feel about that statement? But B, because you got both of you were not on the show last week, how do you feel about CM Punk being your new WWE Undisputed Champion? Good, bad, and different. Ken M, I'll start with you.
All right, so I thought it was a bad move by booking to take the belt off Sami that quick. I understand why, though, because you're setting up for arguably your second biggest card of the year, third, depending on where you put the Royal Rumble. So you want to make sure it's the marquee matchup. Sami Zayn winning, for lack of a better term, on a fluke is not exactly going to drive a storyline, let alone him rematching Cody is not exactly box office due to lack of a storyline build. You could say Sammy's been teasing it for a while. You could try selling it that way, but no. So having him win the belt and then lose it 9 days later against Punk, that sets up for a storyline if they want to go do it. And I think they should after SummerSlam. But your marquee matchup is Punk and Cody, which is ultimately going to lead to Cody finally going heel, which he's been trying to do for a while. The crowd is starting to turn against him. It'll be cemented right there because Punk will probably retain, but Cody will probably take him out after the match. So, but you think about box office draws right now, you need to put the star power there. Sammy, while he's great, he's the Mick Foley of this current era, in my opinion. I don't think the storyline was there to benefit him, but I think him going back to go get the belt is going to be a larger storyline with a better payoff.
I liked everything you said there. Miss Sammy, speaking of the fact that you missed because you were down in Tijuana spending some time with Sami Zayn's biggest fan, El Generico. How are you feeling about the Punk title win?
Well, I like what Ken alluded to there about, Sami Zayn being this generation's kind of like Mick Foley. And obviously he's not doing all the crazy hardcore stuff, but just the guy that, is just can never get to the top. And Mick Foley did get to the top, but he did it by helping another person get over. So who is in that role in WWE that Sami Zayn could have helped get over? Nobody. Because this is where the CM Punk is holding young talent down. CM Punk's not holding young talent down. WWE as a system holds young talent down. Look at the top end of the roster and look at the bottom end of the roster. And they are working to correct this. And they're working very quickly to correct this because they realize that Punk is old. Sami Zayn is 41. Finn Balor is old. Even Roman and Seth. These guys are all up there in age. And they've relied on that top end of the roster too long. And they are all older. Can they still go in the ring? Yes, they can still go in the ring. But there's obviously injury concerns. And just the fact that they're all older. And who says they want to do this forever?
Mm-hmm.
CM Punk has become arguably your top star, up there close to Roman Reigns, and even at times maybe even has surpassed him. Not consistently, but when Roman disappears for a while, who's your guy? CM Punk. You have to put him somewhere on this. SmackDown's been struggling. You haven't booked any sort of an interesting title run with Cody, and he's had the belt multiple times. Every time you've started something interesting, you started something interesting with Randy, but it started off weird because of the whole Drew thing, and then that got fumbled. The same with John Cena, that got fumbled. Like, Cody hasn't had an overall interesting story since the story. Like, I got to finish my story. Since then, it's been a lot of lost chapters, in my opinion. Punk has been consistently consistent and consistently at the top of the card and consistently driving butts into seats and revenue and everything. You got to do something with him, so we might as well give him the belt and see if he can pull a good story out of interesting creative and put something together.
I love both of your points. I honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I love it. It comes across. I mean, I'll rehash a little bit from last week. I said it. It's the same thing. It's a business decision at the end of the day. To Sammy's point, CM Punk is one of the biggest names in the history of pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe I've always said the biggest box office draw currently is Roman Reigns, which he is. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue that point. The thing is, though, CM Punk is a consistent guy in this business. When you talk about legends, he's a guy who for 10 years people chanted CM Punk when he wasn't even around. Okay. Yeah. Every time, CM Punk has become that chant that angry fans do when they're pissed off at the direction of things. That means he's transcended just that character. It is now a deeper meaning to most pro wrestling fans. And in a lot of ways, he's transcended the wrestling business because he's done things outside of wrestling, whether it was writing comic books, whether it was the UFC, whether it's been, as he alluded to, running a marathon, which we'll talk about in a second. There's a lot there. Here's the thing. Both of you hit the nail right on the head. And then I drove it home last week, and I'll say it again. You are going up, your second biggest show of the year, arguably is SummerSlam. You could say third.
WrestleMania of the summer.
We all know that they even though maybe in this we're not in the same room, but in this realm we all are big Royal Rumble fans. Mm-hmm. However, we understand that SummerSlam is the WrestleMania of the summer. That is how they book SummerSlam. So there's that. Secondly, though, SummerSlam happens at the beginning of August, but then there's a show that happens at the end of August. And that show is AEW's All In from Wembley Stadium, and there's a groundswell. You can't phone in SummerSlam because even though they're separated by weeks, people are still going to compare what happens there to what happens at All In. And All In is staring down a tremendous card where your main event probably will be Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay for the AEW World title.
Yeah. Where
we've speculated there could be one of the greatest tag team matches of all time in a 4-way possible tables, ladders, and chairs match. I'm speaking it into existence between Cope and Cage, FTR, the Young Bucks, and the New Day. Right? Mm-hmm. And that's not taking away the fact that we're either going to get Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné, which is a big-time blockbuster match, or Tekla versus Mercedes Moné, which is a big-time women's title match, and everything else around it. So we already know that they're gearing up for All In, and they're in, and listen, pun intended, they're all in. And they're going to put a lot of asses in the seats in the live crowd, and they're going to put a lot of people watching. So as WWE has to go on first, you have to make sure your equivalent show, I understand it's been a long longer, is going to match that energy. And to what Ken said, and this is no shot at Sami Zayn, who I'm a huge fan of, Sami Zayn versus Cody Rhodes on the marquee does not sound the same as Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk on the marquee. And it's just a basic business move. Mm-hmm. Hence why we're getting Roman versus Seth. Although Roman versus Oba, I think, was the bigger match. And I'm still going to go on the record as saying that Oba choosing to go after Brock still baffles me, but we're going to stay away from that until we preview SummerSlam later on. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get into those weeds again. Okay. But I'm just saying, they still have to come and show and prove. Mm-hmm. And so far, they're matching some energy. Granted, I still am more excited for All In, but that's just as me as a wrestling fan. But still, I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna get Cody and Punk. That's gonna be a good marquee match. It could lead to a great heel turn. We're gonna get Seth and Roman. Regardless of what, it's gonna be a great match. It's gonna tell a great story. We're gonna get Oba and Brock one last time, I'm assuming. Okay, cool. And then we're going to fill out the card with possibly Gunther versus Nick Aldis and some other matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, we know we get Liv and Io Sky.
Right.
So, like we're getting a good card. And I think you need to keep that momentum because wrestling fans are going to compare the two.
Mm-hmm.
And we already know that AEW is going all in with All In. So I think this was a smart business move.
Yeah, I mean, optics are very important in wrestling, and obviously the story presentation, the presentation overall, but there's the optics of the business side of things. You are selling yourself to these cities to host these events, and now these cities are coming to you. You gotta, there's got to be some significant return on your investment, and WWE has struggled with their PLEs on the return on investment. If I'm some of these cities, I'm going, I don't know, people show up, but it's not really necessarily the hot product. And if they happen to be interested in wrestling, which again, wrestling is a tough business for, a town or a city or advertiser to be interested in. But if you are, and you're looking at optics and you're watching SummerSlam and you're kind of like, all right, there's a lot of commercials and this and that. And then you watch All In and you see Wembley and they're going for their own attendance record. Optics matter. And I think that's really starting to come into play in WWE. I think they're really looking at some of the, the long commercial breaks, the ad breaks, and that stuff. And they're going, this is not appearing as a good product right now. And we need to course correct. And I think Punk is a huge part of that, and him getting the belt and moving to SmackDown, a show that's been struggling for forever.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with all that. Once again, and there's got to be a lot more work. And I think that there's some of the stuff that you can't blame, even though we've like to use the word creatively bankrupt when talking about WWE's, storylines and creative, in the past, year pretty much. There's also got to be something about the business side, which I can't blame WWE particularly for. It's a TKO decision. And I think that's why you're seeing less investment in tickets and such and et cetera. But let's get back to Punk and Stephanie McMahon, which of course, great interview. I mean, this is the second time they kind of, mixed up. They did it on the ESPN show where we learned that Punk likes to give Stephanie McMahon sweaty hugs. So how do you up that? I'll tell you what, I thought it was great. Two friends having a conversation. I liked the story of running the Chicago Marathon and then wrestling twice on Raw.
Yeah,
was a great story. I won't repeat it. Go listen to it. It's hilarious. Stephanie then offering up her own story was also crazy and cool. But like I've thought the big takeaway for me, and I think it's everybody else, every wrestling fan, was the conversation they had about the pipe bomb. And some of the takeaways. I'm going to start off with the former me being a former behind the scenes guy in pro wrestling in the indies. And as somebody who is giving a lot of advice, and I've heard CM Punk say this before, and I love this, and it's something that I would say to every young wrestler or to somebody who's trying to learn how to cut a better promo. You can tell them 4 truths, and then you can tell them whatever lie you want, and they'll believe it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 4. You can do 3, you can do whatever, but it is a fact. And that is what the conviction and what people don't get about it. And that's what he did in the pipe bomb. Think about it. He told the wrestling fans what I was saying, and I get some of the younger generation might not get the things, but you got to go back. And like he said, you go back to 2011 and nobody was able to talk about the things he was talking about. He in that pipe bomb talks about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Mm-hmm. He talks about Ring of Honor, both companies that do not work with
They
them.
were right. They were
outside. Back then you do not mention any company other than WWE. And then he also mentions Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar, who were no longer with the company, which was also a big no-no. You didn't mention people, especially Paul Heyman left on really bad terms with Vince. Mm. Like, remember, they had a whole blow up on an airplane.
Yep.
And then that led to his firing and his exile from WWE for like 4 years. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about somebody who is persona non grata, and he brings him up. So part of that is there's your 4 truths. Not to mention also perception is reality. Him saying, hey, here I've been busting my ass and I'm still not on the marquee. I'm still not on the programs. I'm still not on the cups. Oh, and you fans that are cheering me right now, you're drinking out of those cups. You're buying those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just as bad as the rest of them. So when you get to the point where he says about his stupid daughter and his brain in his doofus for a son-in-law, which finding out that Vince, the only addition to the one that Punk wrote down to Vince is, you got to say something about Steph.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
That's wild.
Is that, and the other thing I took away from the creative aspect of him talking about it was the fact of, asking for forgiveness and not permission. He purposely didn't tell Vince what he was going to say. He gave him an outline of something that he knew would pass and then went out and did the other.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in juncture, you have to do something like that. You have to read the room. You have to take a chance. And I think that that's a big thing. And I'm not saying go into business for yourself. There's a whole nother, because as he pointed out, that was all a work.
Yeah.
There was no shoot to that. Yeah, there's maybe some real feelings built in. He talked about some real life things, but it was all a work.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a promo. But he made us all believe it because of the way it was delivered, because of his actions, because of everything else going on. And that is a testament to that. So my question, after me kerfuffling all of that out there, I'll start with you, Miss Sammy, is knowing all of this and getting that peek behind the curtain, does this A, make the pipe bomb even better for you or worse? And B, do you think that, we know he did a second pipe bomb, if you will. Do you think that not talking about that one has made that even more, the aura better? Your thoughts?
Well, Punk has always been kind of a, hard on his sleeve type guy, someone who's always just been very, very vocal. And the pipe bomb was just a huge impactful moment in wrestling because it broke all the rules of wrestling at that time. He's the only guy that could do it, though. And he's still the only guy that can really do it. When other guys try and do it, and gals, sorry, just anyone, it doesn't really work. And it's mostly just because of that long-standing reputation that Punk has to always just kind of march to the beat of his own drum. And honestly, added to the fact that he did walk away from wrestling. So you look at the pipe bomb and you go, some of that stuff he was saying was very true. He might not have implied to Vince and others that how important and how impactful it was to him at the time. And as we know, it got a lot worse after the pipe bomb and such. But he was grieving about it back, upset about it back then, and then it got worse. So it doesn't really change my opinion on the pipe bomb. I think looking at it now and in the newer version he did this year, he's a trusted person. And even back then, he's a trusted person to be allowed to do that. And it's nice to see that a lot of feelings have healed because there was damage done there. We know that that's documented, and there was more damage done a few years later and such. So it's good to see that these relationships have healed, and he's trusted, and he trusts others to help with him in his career going forward.
I think he addressed that a little bit here because he says that a lot of people who have tried to copy it, and like I said, you should never copy it. Just take that part about if you say some truth, then you can believe because as long as you're believing it, everybody else will believe it. And if there's some truth involved, and people can go, well, that's true. And that's also true. They have to assume that the next thing is also true, whether it is or not, whether it's bullshit or not, right? But he even said that people, whether he's seen younger talents try to do similar things, and what they take away from it was saying people's real names. And he was like, that was never the point. The point wasn't just to say the real name or peel back the curtain. It was to tell you enough truths that when I was bullshitting you, you believed the bullshit. And that's really where I think it sets apart. But I also think that from the aspect of the time, I think the time was important. Mm-hmm. And you pointed out, and I said a little bit about it, but and I've said it to Ken before, back then, nobody said those things. Nobody was coming out and like he was alluding. I mean, we all knew wrestling was a work, but he was alluding a lot of things. On top of that, you have the, actually, I don't dislike you, John. I actually like you more than a lot of other people. He was like, but you know what I don't like about you is the idea that you're the best in the world because I'm the best in the world. And I don't like that you're an ass kisser, probably as good as Terry, but not Dwayne. Yeah. Dwayne is, you have this, not only that, but there's some visceral, and it was something that fans believed. It was taboo. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get taboo. We got a little bit of it with the secondary one when he went after Pat McAfee and the bosses that be, if you knew what he was talking about, which a lot of people did. Mm. But is that something, the tabooism of it?
Well, you have to think about the time and era he's in, and especially the mounting frustration. It's almost like I have nothing left to lose. Like, I know whatever I say here is either going to get me over or get me fired. One of the two things. And honestly, hearing it in this perspective, and he's had time to rethink it, go over it. He's a different person than he was back then in many different ways. So I don't think it took anything away from the promo's impact. I think it gave the blueprint about challenging wrestlers to cross a line, like to see, you don't know how far you go until you cross a line, and really implemented about, doing some smoke and mirrors and seeing how far you can go. And I thought it was brilliant how he set it up and he explained it. And the reason it was so over, like you've alluded to, is like it was taboo to say that at the time. You didn't do that. You didn't cross that line. He did. And it got him over and it showed people a blueprint. Now, whether they followed it to the letter or not, very debatable, depending on who you want to bring it up. But in this aspect, I think it was a moment in time that he knew got him over. And I think him hashing it out with Stephanie on air, I thought really kind of sealed up some old threads that were still lying around untied.
Agreed. And like I said, it as he pointed out, he knows that everything is recycled. Everything isn't new. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did the Summer of Punk originally in Ring of Honor. So he rehashed a lot of that, which was fine. It's good to do that. But I think back to one of the more impactful things that I think doesn't get enough credit, speaking of peeling back the curtain and doing the taboo thing, is back in 2005 when Matt Hardy got fired for his real life fight between him and Edge over the whole Lita situation. Mm-hmm. When he returned, if you remember, one of the first times you ever heard it, he returned and he jumped the barricade and they wrestled him down. He was running away and they were trying to get him down. And he kept yelling, "You can't touch me. I'm an ROH wrestler. Mm-hmm. I work for Ring of Honor." And he kept yelling that. And that was really weird because for us, I remember because I've always, I was working in indie wrestling at that point in juncture, and I was a big ROH fan. I was like, yes, here's Matt Hardy sticking it. We knew that he was planned to be there, but it was still a cool nod and a tip to the cap. And so it had been done before, but just not in the way Punk did it, and just him talking about, hey, I was ready to leave. I was really going to leave. That was the plan. Maybe I'll come back later on. Maybe I won't. I'm probably going to go other places. But there was no contract. And then that promo got over so much that it was like, even though I was burnt out, you realize that you don't get those opportunities. Mm-hmm. We are now on a rocket ship. We are now where you can print money, and I'm going to make more money than I ever have in my life. And you can't turn that down. And to his point, that's true. If you are in that business, you are in the wrestling business to hopefully one day get one of those moments.
Yeah.
That eludes a lot of people. And that's not a bad thing. It just happens. Not everybody can have, the Austin 316 promo. Not everybody can have, The Rock coming out and addressing Die Rocky Die. Mm-hmm. You can't have, the pipe bomb, et cetera, where guys go from, hey, we like them, they're talented, they're entertaining, to, oh no, they're a megastar. Mm-hmm. Roman Reigns coming back in the Bloodline. I know we all make fun of the Bloodline now, but that was a big deal.
Yeah.
When, shoved down our throats for years, nobody wanted it. And then, turn them heel and it works. Sometimes old school style is the way to go. Right. Mm-hmm. So I always thought that. I also thought before I switch gears, Joe, go ahead and definitely go check out the full interview because it was really good.
Yes.
I did love what he talked about Pat Patterson when Pat Patterson didn't realize how over Punk would be in Philadelphia when he did the Survivor Series match. And then he was like, after the match, Pat apologizing to me. And he was like, and our relationship was great. He was like, and that was one of the things that he gravitated towards that, and then he was like, also Pat loved me because that I would ask him about old school wrestling and Pat would love to tell stories. And I thought that was cool to bring up because anytime, you can bring up, he's such a legend. Anytime you can bring him up, it's amazing. And you get the trees that Punk sat under that he's trying to say, hey, I can give these, and this is where he's an asset to every kid out there that's wrestling. Mm-hmm. Is these are the jewels I can give you. I sat under the tree of Pat. I sat under the tree of Dusty. I sat under the tree, in some ways of Vince, which it can be good and bad, right? Mm. I sat under all these trees, and I, Gabe Sapolsky even to an extent, I know he doesn't get some of the respect he should get, but he should. And in all these trees that Punk has sat underneath, you can tell a young talent a lot because you learned a lot from those.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool that he kind of reflected on that, as well as, Stephanie telling, she does a great job with her interviews. I will give her credit. So go check it out, because I can't do it as much justice. Let's switch some gears. Let's switch over to All Elite Wrestling. Did everybody watch AEW last night?
Yes.
Because obviously it's last night for me. So I will say this before we start talking about Redemption, because that's what we're going to talk about. I will say this. I thought it was a strong show. I liked what went down. I just thought that the order of the matches was a little wonky.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like I didn't like the order of the matches, but I really did dig the show overall. Really good stuff on the show. But with that being said, it's set up. We got our road to redemption. We've got some stuff set up. We got the AEW National Championship is now officially going to be on the line. Mark Davis will defend against Andrade El Idolo. We have that was a national championship. The AEW International Championship will also be on the line. Kyle Fletcher is defending against Bandito. So I guess they are paying off that weird backstage segment. This is all from AEW's website, so it's not speculation. We are getting what they're saying is going to be the final match between these two, as the Painmaker, Chris Jericho, will take on Tommaso Ciampa. It doesn't say a stipulation yet or no, so I'm assuming maybe a stipulation or something. What?
I heard that.
And then we have the AEW Women's World Championship on the line as the number one contender due to winning the Casino Gauntlet. Willow Nightingale will take on the AEW Women's World Champion Tekla. And then we also found out the AEW World Championship will be on the line as the TNT champion Kevin Knight will challenge the Cleaner, the Best Bout Machine, and the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. So my question is simple. I'll start with you, Ken. We got 5 matches officially announced by AEW. There's a couple that are in the works, so I'm not going to bring in speculation, but we have 5 announced matches. How are you feeling on the road to redemption, knowing that we're a couple weeks away, July 26th?
How you know?
I love Andrade, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be very honest. This card is shaping up very nicely for being, I don't want to say a throwaway card, but it's, flying under the radar because of All In. This has been a very solid build-up for it. I like the championship matches we have booked. And, I mean, Kevin Knight and Kenny Omega is going to be amazing. And I'm actually more excited about this than I thought it was going to be. AEW Dynamite, I will agree. I did not like the structure of the card, but I thought for what we got was very good. And once again, how you know.
Sammy, what's your thoughts on the build to redemption?
I think the build has been incredibly solid. I think the card is shaping up, and the card is shaping up to be a lot of big potential and possibilities, because you're putting together some matchups that are a little fresh. You're putting together some stories that are a little fresh, and you're giving some people an opportunity that they wouldn't necessarily get, especially with the top of the card with the main event with Kenny Omega and Kevin Knight. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. Will it end up being the best of the year? I think it's got a long way to go, because we go All In. We're already planting the seeds of that card, but AEW always delivers in the ring. They are finally delivering on most of their stories and storytelling. It's got to be a good show.
I'm going to say this. I think it's setting up to be good, and I want to say that this is an in-between show. Redemption is just to get us to All In. We're doing this at the end of July. The end of August is All In. And so it would be easy, especially now in the day and age, and I'm going to bury him because I don't give a damn, where WWE does this. They have those throwaway, we're just going to do a throwaway match because it doesn't matter.
This weekend.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But I love the fact that they're still putting some importance on redemption.
Yeah.
You're getting a great match between Mark Davis and Andrade El Idolo. You're getting a great match between Kyle Fletcher and Bandito. You're getting a great match between Kenny Omega and Kevin Knight, which you didn't have that. And then you have a match that's very interesting because it could go either way. You could say that all those other matches, I'm assuming we might have an and new with Andrade, right?
Yes.
I think we're all thinking that. I think that we're all assuming Kyle Fletcher will be end still. And we're all assuming that Kenny Omega will be end still. What you could say is predictable, but at the same point in juncture, it's not, because it's still going to give you a good match. They're quality matches.
And plus, Kevin Knight is going to be made into a household name by the end of this match. He's going to have the best match of his career thus far.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah. I agree, but that's what I was getting at. So even though predictable matches that we're saying are predictable are going to mean something. You have a star-making opportunity for Kevin Knight, who has already started that climb. you're going to really have that opportunity here. It's sink or swim time, kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you have Bandito, who is a very phenomenal athlete. And this is going to help him and Kyle Fletcher keep elevating each other. And then, like I said, Andrade winning is just logical.
Yes.
But then you also have already a match that's a toss-up. Tekla versus Willow Nightingale for the AEW Women's World Championship. You would think going into the biggest show of the year, oh, we might not get a title change. But Willow versus Mercedes is so rich in story that is really the match that if I'm booking, I might go with. Not because I don't like Tekla.
Mm-hmm.
So that means this match is a coin toss. It's going to depend on, hey, do we want to go in with the fresh matchup between Tekla and Mercedes in Wembley, or do we want to go with the proven story with Willow and Mercedes? And either way is a win, in my opinion. Like, there is no wrong answer here, because we're either going to get Mercedes versus Tekla or Willow versus Mercedes, and we're all going to win. And that's a beautiful place. This is one of those times where they're not painting themselves into a corner. They're not booking themselves out of something. You could book either way, and I think everybody's going to go home happy.
Yeah.
And that's exciting because you don't normally get that this close to a pay-per-view, like a massive pay-per-view, like All In.
Yeah.
Usually Redemption would just be shaded like, okay, everybody's going to retain. So therefore, it just gives us something to do on the road to All In.
Mm-hmm.
And there's real stakes here. I think that this is a big bucket of win. I do have a criticism, though.
Sure.
And it's a minor one. I don't want to get into the weeds on it. They've also announced during the buy-in that they're going to celebrate, because this is coming from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Okay.
They have announced during the buy-in that they are going to celebrate 80 years of the Rougeau wrestling dynasty. The Rougeaus are huge in Montreal. Of course, most of us would remember the Rougeau brothers, which would be Ray and Jacques.
Mm-hmm.
Jacques would go on to be the Mountie, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
My problem with this is, Ray Rougeau, one of the most stand-up legendary wrestlers of all time, and legit tough guy. Okay. Their father and grandfather also very respected. The problem is you get the Jacques. And he's very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
He's been known to take advantage of students. He's been known to, like, famously, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were trained by Jacques Rougeau, more like he stole their money. Like, that's very famous. Yeah, he's not exactly known as a great person. I mean, the greatest thing he ever technically did, I mean, in his career, you could argue the Mountie was a very cool character, which led to the Quebecers tag team, which was fun. And of course, him and Ray Rougeau had him and his brother, as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, had the greatest theme music of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just throwing it out there. Maybe second. The greatest of all time is Spider Nate Webb.
This is true.
A teenage dirtbag is
number one.
So it's the second greatest, because All American Boys for two guys from Montreal is amazing. Anyways, if you've never heard it because you're a younger listener, go onto you. If you're already on YouTube watching us, after the show's over, type in Fabulous Rougeau Brothers theme, or type in All American Boys and enjoy. I'm just throwing it out there. And if you haven't heard it in a while, type it in and enjoy. But anyways, he has become quite a controversial character. So I'm not upset about it, because it's not like one of those ones where he's on a list and he shouldn't.
Yeah,
it's not like celebrating the Dynamite Kid.
Yeah.
Although Jacques Rougeau's most famous thing he did was punching Dynamite Kid's mouth teeth out with a roll of quarters after he got bullied by him. Another story, if you've never seen that story, tremendous. So it's not that controversial, or, thinking of flirting with having Chris Benoit Jr. on your roster. That's a little more controversial. But it's still, I don't know if it's a great look. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's a great look. I understand what they're trying to do, because I will applaud Tony in this aspect. He does try tying in a lot of wrestling history to different pay-per-views when he goes there. And I applaud him for doing that, because as much as we live in this fast-paced digital age, a lot of fans don't really know some of the great classic wrestlers. I mean, it's just unfortunate, but it is the case. So in doing this, yeah, it's a great spotlight to throw on, but due to what you said, Rich, I don't like the move in that aspect, but I respect it. I'm not saying like, oh God, don't do it, but I'm not like, personally, I think this was like a little misstep, just because, like I said, it's a little too controversial for me.
I agree with that. Miss Sammy, do you want anything, add anything to that?
I guess the only thing I would say is that I'll be interested to see how it plays out. If you just get a mention, you're just running through like the family history or whatever, then this could be okay. But if you really start diving into a lot of history and lore and bringing people out and stuff like that, then this could get a little messy. So I want to refrain from saying too much more until it actually happens, because I think doing it is not a terrible idea, depending on how you go about doing it.
Right on, right on, right on. All right, let's switch those final gears because we got a show coming up on July 18th. Of course, that's this upcoming Saturday, and that would be Saturday night's main event, and it will be live from the Mecca of pro wrestling and basketball, Madison Square Garden. That, of course, is where the New York Knicks play basketball. The
World champion.
NBA World Champion, New York Knicks, that is. Speaking of the NBA World Champion, it has been announced already that Jalen Brunson will be in attendance, and he will be accompanying Roman Reigns to the ring. Roman's not wrestling. He's going to make an appearance. So maybe Roman's going to probably have I'm assuming Roman's going to do the baby face, have the crowd acknowledge Jalen. Probably. I am wearing a Brunson jersey, so I will have no problems giving my acknowledgments. I will get them out of the way early on. However, we have a card, 4 matches so far listed. First up, and this is the one that's on the poster. Danhausen is going one-on-one with JD McDonough of the Judgment Day in a no disqualification match. And it is teased that Danhausen will have some backup.
Yes.
And I'm assuming it's going to be, we know it can't be Jalen Brunson. That's probably why they had to switch it, because Jalen Brunson has a hand injury. Obviously, we don't want to risk next year's possible repeat of the championship. So you never know. Josh Hart could fill in, but I think it's going to be somebody from the New York Knicks, in my opinion. Ken, your thoughts?
Oh, Danhausen's going over. There's no question about that. And then, it's a great question to see who they could bring in for it. I was trying to think. Maybe just maybe this is Enzo coming in. I mean, we do know about the big cast tease for 8-3, but you know what? Why not bring Enzo in early for reasons?
At the Garden?
At the Garden.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think the crowd would love it. How you doing, Sammy? Who do you got winning? Who do you got getting involved?
Well, Danhausen's definitely going over, because if he's not, I think they might riot just because of the connection to the Knicks and everything that happened. Like, he was directly involved in all of it, so he has to go over here. Who gets involved? That's it. Maybe it's the big cast, when we go that way, and then Enzo comes out the next night, and that's the big swerve,
They swerved us on the date.
Yeah,
you never know. We've seen
swerve on the tease. Enzo comes out the next night.
I am going. Obviously, Danhausen's going over.
Yeah.
I want to think that they're going to get some of the Knicks involved. So I maybe an OG Anunoby or a Josh Hart getting involved in the match, just because it would keep something fresh. Maybe get the big cat involved.
Give me Alvarado.
Alvarado would be great. Listen, Danhausen's over in New York.
Yeah.
Danhausen right now can do no wrong, and he probably will never pay for another meal in the city of New York.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing it out there. If Jalen Brunson is the king of New York, Danhausen may be the prince.
Yes.
Because, I think that's where he's at, especially after the Uncursed. Like I said, so much so that he is on the poster telling everybody to come join the Uncursed.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome stuff. Next up, we have the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship on the line, as your champions, Paige and Brie Bella, will take on Fatal Influence, Laney Reed and Phelan Henley. They will have JC Jane in their corner. Interesting matchup. Tag titles on the line. Miss Sammy, who do you have leaving the Garden as the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions?
Fatal Influence. It's time. There's been a long enough title run. Paige and the Bella twins, one twin. I forget what the Danhausen joke with it, but it's the Bella clones. That's it. It's time. It's been enough time. It's time for them to go separate ways and do other things. There's so many incredible, talented women on the roster, and to get Paige more involved with them is just a big bucket of win. She's an amazing storyteller. She's shown enough that she can keep up in the ring. I don't think she could ever go like she did back in the day, but that's okay. She doesn't need to.
I would like to see Fatal Influence go over here. So I'm going to pick Anu just because that's what I want to see. And I think it's time to listen. I love what JC Jane has done, and Laney Reed and Phelan Henley would be great to get their first championship off as well. Ken, your pick?
For the love of St. Brunson, it better be Fatal Influence. Listen, I'm just going to put it out there. The Bree Page run has been what it's been. It was supposed to be Nikki, and we need to remember she was hurt. Maybe Nikki is healthy enough. She comes back and costs Bree and Paige the title because why? It should have been her moment. Then you have some storyline going on there, and you know what? Fatal Influence won't mind getting the titles. And obviously, I think they got a lot of great storylines they can do. So yeah, please, for the love of St. Brunson.
Next up, a match that we got made on Raw this past week. Bayley will take on Lyra Valkyria. This is an interesting one to me. First of all, I remember messaging you like, "What the hell are they doing with Lyra?"
Yeah.
Because I'll share a peek behind the curtain, so because I know you'll talk about it in a minute, but as well, they don't need to do Tatum Paxley light when they have Tatum Paxley.
Yes,
I'm just throwing that out there, and Lyra does not get that role very well. Like I don't understand it. It didn't make a lot of sense. It didn't sell me on anything. Quite frankly, I think it's just Bayley should just go over just because then we can boost her back into the main event picture because. Right now, they need to figure out what the hell they're doing with Lyra because this ain't it, is what I'm going to say. This is one of those creative bankruptcy moments. Ken, your thought and your pick.
Well, like you and I talked off air about this. I think
didn't include me. Thanks.
Well, you were out of town.
This was on Monday.
I was in town.
I didn't know when you got back from Tijuana. Like, what do you expect? Anyway,
Tijuana came to me.
Yeah,
I flew with Andrade.
See, now I'm mad you didn't have us talk to him. You know, we have to get him on the show for an interview. Getting back on track, though. Lyra's gimmick just isn't getting over. Like, they're trying to make her either Nikki Cross 2.0 or Tatum. It's just not working. What they should do is have Lyra go be the protege for Natty. And I think there's some mileage to do there because Lyra can go in the ring. She has all the tools there. Just the gimmick wise, it's just never gotten over. However, though, I feel she's going to win here because I don't exactly know what's going on with Bayley. And I think that she's kind of in this weird area where it's like, if she wins, great, where do we go from here? But if she loses, does it hurt her? No, because we don't really have a great storyline going on with her right now. So I'm going to say Lyra just because of reasons, but I don't like the crash out gimmick, I guess is the easiest way to describe it.
Miss Sammy, who's leaving Madison Square Garden, your winner between Bayley and Lyra Valkyria?
Lyra Valkyria. Didn't you hear the rumors? Didn't you see? You're not aware of this? Bayley's going to AEW. Mercedes Moné's all over it. And you know what? At this point, I'm kind of believing it. So I think she's going to go out on her back. She's going to disappear from TV and pop up in AEW in a few months.
I mean, it might not be the worst thing, but I just don't know what her contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you look at it from a perspective of wrestling, what else does Bayley have to accomplish in WWE?
I mean, from that, I'm all for her. I would be the first to tell you I'm all for her to go to AEW just because it would be something fresh and new and something different. The problem is I just don't know how realistic that is. Like, I don't want to put that on the world. I mean, if that is the case and that if like her contract is really truly going to be up and that's the case, I could believe that 110%. It's just sad that they're going to do it with this terrible gimmick that Lyra's got. Mm-hmm. I don't know the contract situation, quite frankly, because I don't remember the last time she signed one. It was a while ago, but she signed a long-term one the last time she signed one. So that's the only bad part about wrestling right now is you not knowing contracts. You don't know. Mm-hmm. It's not like baseball and basketball and football where we know the contract status.
Right.
It would be easy if we were like, oh yeah, her contract's up in August. Okay, cool. Then that would make sense. You know, unless you talk about it, we don't. And once again, Mercedes Moné is just good at getting people talking. So she's going to write whatever on there. This goes
Mercedes
back to because I was going to say it wasn't that long ago. Because remember when everybody was doing the AEW on Bayley's gear, as her going to AEW, and then she resigned. So that was like 2022, I think, if I remember correctly. So I don't know. Depends on how many years she signed. All right, that brings us to the main event of the evening, where we will get your WWE Undisputed Champion CM Punk tagging with a former WWE Undisputed Champion, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, as they take on Gunther and the former WWE Undisputed Champion, Sami Zayn. A lot of former WWE champions in this match, except for Gunther, but he is a former World Heavyweight Champion.
Yes,
you got that. Also, former longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. So you have that. You can't teach that.
Nope.
All right, so you get to go first. You're in the hot seat first, Ken. Who is leaving Saturday night's main event? The winner of this tag team main event extravaganza.
The last real honest wrestlers in the business, Sammy and Gunther. Mm-hmm. I think that this is going to happen because Cody Rhodes is going to pull a late Sid Justice, and walk away from CM Punk in the ring. Yep, and set up that feud even more. So that's where I think it's going, and I'm here for a Gunther Sammy faction.
Damn it! If Brandy comes to the ring, they're going to pull a Macho Man Hogan, but then that could be CM Punk leaving with Brandy like Hogan did, and then you got lust in your eyes, yeah, oh yeah. Anyways, I go back to that lust Hogan. Go ahead, Miss Sammy. Who do you got leaving as the winner of the tag team extravaganza?
Well, I guess you didn't pitch the alternative version of that where AJ Lee gets involved and Punk still walks out the good guy and Cody walks out the bad guy because creative bankruptcy and we'll just do it a little differently. But anyway, no, it's Gunther and Sammy going over here, and yes, it's going to open the door for a Cody Punk SummerSlam match, and this is what's going to make it make sense. Basically, this is that.
Yeah, we're gonna get the. I think I'm agreeing going across Gunther and Sami Zayn because obviously I said damn because Ken kind of took my thoughts. How we get there, I think we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna do the classic. There'll be a miscommunication. That's what cost Cody to walk out. Punk get to eats the pin. That way, when they meet up again, you could be like, the reason I left is because you punched me in my mouth, and it wasn't intentional. And then it looks like they make up, and then that takes you into SummerSlam. Yep. And like I believe what Ken said. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves because obviously a couple weeks, but I honestly think it's going to be CM Punk going over and Cody attacking him after as well. So I mean, we'll get there. It's a whole story.
I think it's important to set that up now.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Right? That's why I said if this match ends and Punk and Rhodes go over clean, this is a missed opportunity.
Yeah, this is a normal match ending. No,
even if Gunther and Sammy go over clean or as clean as possible, two heels get. This is a missed opportunity. There has to be like there was a miscommunication in Cody. If whoever's going to turn heel leaves, or the miscommunication is what leads to the loss. So like they go to Punk goes to tag Cody or whatever. Gunther shoves him into Cody, rolls him up, and that's what causes the pin. Something where it can be, or Cody goes to hit Gunther and accidentally cocks Punk. They knock Cody off. They hit the power bomb. He gets pinned. Mm-hmm. Somehow, some way, there has to be one of them costing the other one the match. Whoever you want to turn heel has to be involved. And I think that if it ends clean, that is the most creatively bankrupt thing that could happen. Mm-hmm. Whether Gunther and Zayn go over clean or Punk or Rhodes go over clean. Either way. Just saying. But that is Saturday night's main event coming up this upcoming Saturday. We will be watching it. We will be talking about it next week. But speaking of that, we are done talking about pro wrestling for this week. So make sure you head on over to fanlightzone.com. You, first of all, look at all the wonderful comic book reviews that are up on there. But on top of all that, you can find all of our social media links there. You're going to make sure you want to follow us on there because I know Ken will be live social posting, we'll say, on a bunch of different social sites during Saturday night's main event, as well as if you're watching on Twitch or X, you can watch our live show on there, which is this 607 TWS every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, you have to get over to the Fanlight Zone YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Click the bell icon for notifications so you know whenever we go live, and hit that thumbs up to help us with the algorithm, because even though this right here is live on 3 different things, including YouTube, our other videos are not.
Yeah.
Including our wonderful interview with Todd McFarlane, and including next week at San Diego Comic-Con. So there's a preview show. So you're going to want to make sure you lock yourself in for those if those things interest you. And the only way to do that is to subscribe to the Fanlight Zone YouTube channel. However, since we're done talking wrestling until next week, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live right here on 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. For myself, for Miss Sammy, for Ken M. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And most importantly, later wrestling fans.